And welcome back. More importantly, welcome back to the channel and to each a good day. Well, it's been a little while since you saw us post a video. I do apologize for that. I'll explain a little bit more about that and what the future direction of this channel towards the end of this video. But what you were seeing is the inside of the 2021 Jeep Compass that you've seen in a couple of other our videos on the channel. And I think the last time we had this particular Jeep on our channel, we were installing an aftermarket remote start, which has been running flawlessly, by the way. Now, however, I've since removed that aftermarket remote start because I want to see if we can enable the factory remote start on this particular Jeep. And I say that because in the hood, it already has the provision and it is installed for the little safety switch that you normally have to install, especially on this other videos of this channel where you've seen we've done this on Ram trucks and such, and usually that little latch piece is missing, so you have to add it. So, and the other reason why we want to see if we can get the factory remote start to work is that we've got some other plans for this Jeep, and it will help to kind of tie things in to have a factory remote start as opposed to the aftermarket. So with that said, we have since removed the aftermarket remote start, and the first thing that we need to do is get some keys programmed into this Jeep that have the remote start button from the factory, because you can see that all we have right now is just two fobs from the factory, just with the lock and unlock and the panic button. We're actually missing the remote start button. Now, sometimes on these fobs, the button is actually on there inside the circuit panel, and you could just replace this skin. Usually what I like to do is just go ahead and get all brand new fobs and just program the Jeep to use a set of fobs with the remote start button. And what we're going to attempt to use today to show you one is just a set we got off Amazon. If these work out well, I'll put a link in the description below. But you can see we just gain our factory remote start button. Now, you have to forgive my hands. I do apologize. I had a little bit of a reaction to some brand new cleaning chemical. They are healing, but as you can see, unfortunately, they are peeling. They look kind of bad, but they look worse than they actually are. Now, I'll address this a little bit more later in the video, but we're finding some very interesting stuff out about this generation of Jeep. This is what's called a Jeep Compass, but it is the MP variety. Now, with that being said, from what I can find online, these are classified more as Fiats with Jeep badges. They align more to the Fiat platform than a traditional Jeep Chrysler type platform. Now, with that being said, and again, we'll kind of cover this as we get to it. In order to do what we're going to attempt to do today, we're going to be utilizing several different tools. One of them is going to be this secure gateway extension cable put out by Automotive. You've seen me use one of these before that we used in order to tap into the CAN bus when we installed the aftermarket remote start. I'm going to put on one that hasn't been altered because it does make it easier to get to that cable, in which we then need to, at another point in this video, as you will see, we'll have to use our what they call the secure gateway, or the Chrysler, there it is, Chrysler 12+8 bypass cable. And having this extension cable on this allows us to kind of pull the factory cabling down a little bit more. It makes it more easily accessible, because what we're going to do is we're going to be extending the connections that the factory harness would normally plug into the secure gateway into this extension cable. Again, it just allows that factory harness to hang down a little bit lower inside the dash here, so that way if we have to access it more easily in the future, we can. And if you go back and you watch the video for the install, I do apologize, I know it's a bit dark. If you watch the installation video for the aftermarket remote start, in this particular Jeep, the secure gateway module is about halfway up on the very back of the firewall, so it's kind of hard for me to get in there and show you. But if you watch the third-party remote start install, you'll see I think we got a pretty good shot of that. And again, So what will happen, we'll disconnect the factory cabling from that module. We'll plug our extension cables in, and then when we're done for the day, we'll plug our factory cable into this extension harness rather than directly into the module. Again, just makes that easier to get into in the future. And you do have a lot of individuals that will use this along with Z Automotive's bypass adapter. It looks like a square block, and what it does is when you utilize their full bypass, that little square block, it takes your ODB2 and basically reverts it back to a traditional where you have full diagnostic access to the vehicle. Because what the secure gateway is, and the later models of Chrysler products, I believe it was 2018 on up, they implement a secure gateway, and what that is to prevent unauthorized changes to the vehicle. So without running a bypass cable, your scan tool has to be able to unlock that secure gateway in order to do changes to the vehicle. If not, you're just locked in kind of a read-only mode. Well, since we want to turn on the option of remote start in this video, we need the ability to be able to change that. Now, I do have a scan tool that does support unlocking the secure gateway. It does require a yearly membership in my case to auto auth in order so that they can verify that I am who I say I am. And I do have the ability to unlock the gateway natively with my launch scan tool, but I can't make configuration changes to the vehicle. That's where Alpha OBD is going to come into the play, as well as in order to program the keys into this vehicle, we're going to be using our XTool D8 to go ahead and perform that procedure. And the reason why that is, and I'm sorry, I know this is a bit long-winded for the beginning, but I kind of have to explain all this as we found this out. A lot of your aftermarket scan tools are starting to participate in the NASTIF program, and what that is, I believe that is the National Automotive Security Task Force. And what that is that it is starting to take third-party scan tools and lock them out of the ability of doing anything immobilizer or key programming related unless you're a member of NASTIF. And in order to do that, you have to be what they call a VSP individual, which means you're full-on locksmith and or a full-on business with about $1 million liability insurance policy, which I get why they're doing it because of all the auto theft. A lot of the third-party manufacturers are opting in because this is an opt-in solution, and what it does is it locks out those immobilizer functions unless you log into your NASTIF as a VSP first. So in order to combat the car thefts that are being done by the use of third-party tools, it's kind of like a SWAT and a fly with a sledgehammer approach where they're just kind of locking it down to where you have to be an authorized individual. So unfortunately, there's no middle ground for DIYers like ourselves where we just want to occasionally, like in this case, just program a couple of extra fobs to our vehicle. If you don't have the ability of utilizing one of these other tools to do it, then you have to go to a locksmith or you have to go to the dealer at that point, which, I mean, that kind of bites. Yeah, I don't often program additional fobs to my vehicles, but I still want the ability to do it if I need to do it myself. Maybe in some point in the future, they'll have a middle ground, you know, where we can prove that we own the vehicle and gain access to those pins that we need. But for now, it's kind of an all or nothing approach, which kind of sucks. Now, I can't program, again, the fobs using my launch because launch now participates in that program. I have tried it on this vehicle and the immobilizer functions just aren't even there, but our XTool D8 still supports us being able to program the keys. So what I'm going to do first, and I know that was a bit long-winded, I do apologize, and I'll cover a bit more of that as we go through this process. But what I'm going to do is crawl up underneath the dash here behind the firewall. I'm going to disconnect the secure gateway module and just get this extension cable plugged into that module. And then with the secure gateway disconnected, I'm going to plug the harness connections into this bypass cable, and then we're going to get our XTool powered up and see if we can get these two fobs programmed to the vehicle. Provided that we can do that successfully, then we'll move on to the next piece, which is going to be enabling the remote start functionality. Now, again, like I was saying before, this Jeep's a bit unique. What we ran into looking at some other things in the past as well as online is that anytime you do a configuration change to one of these Jeeps, they need what's called a proxy alignment. Meaning we're going to go into the body control module of this Jeep. We're going to enable remote start, but that will immediately make all the other modules in this Jeep extremely mad, to the point, at least on this model Jeep, it won't even start, it won't run. The dashboard is going to light up like a Christmas tree with pretty much every module in this vehicle saying there's a fault or an error. Because what's happening is it's unaware, the other modules in the vehicle are unaware that there is a configuration difference in the body control module that hasn't been relayed to the other modules in this vehicle. So again, we're going to program the fobs. Provided that goes well, we're going to switch over to Alpha OBD. We're going to enable a remote start. And then we're going to go into actually back into the launch at that point, because the launch does have the ability, or at least I saw the option in there, to do a proxy alignment. If that does not go well, the proxy alignment does not take, then you probably saw it sitting here on the passenger side. We'll use the actual Mopar diagnostic pod and software to do that proxy alignment. Now, you may be asking yourself the question, well, if you have access to the Mopar Diagnostics pod and pay the fees and have access to the actual YTech 2 and the ability to do programming, why not just program the keys through that? Well, I'll tell you, that's what we ran into as well. Even though I have a phenomenal dealership here, and they did provide me the PIN number for this vehicle. I tried using the PIN number to program a set of keys for this vehicle, and that PIN number would not work. Now, I did engage YTech's technical support, and as soon as I told them what I was doing, they informed me that I am set up as an aftermarket version of this software, which functionality-wise looks to be no different than a dealer version. However, the 4-digit PIN code we get from the dealer only works with a dealer version of YTech. It will not work with the aftermarket one. So, although this one has the ability of doing a lot of what we want to do today without having to bypass the secure gateway to do it, again, we can't get a hold of the PIN numbers because we're not a member of, we're not a VSP with NASDF. So unfortunately, we can't use that tool to do it. Again, this kind of goes back to there being no middle ground. And if what I need to use this tool is an aftermarket PIN number, then I don't understand why NASDF doesn't give DIYers like ourselves the ability to, upload our maybe registration and driver's license or some type of other photo ID to prove that we own the vehicle in order to get our own PIN numbers. Again, I'm not looking to go on a political or any kind of rant here. My viewpoint is if I own the vehicle, then I want access to all the wiring, schematics, PIN numbers, anything I need to do service on this vehicle. And right now with NASDF, I can't do that. I can't get the pins I need to use the native tools to do the key programming and such. Now, if anybody knows any different or knows the way of doing it, please put it in the description below. I would love to know about it. But again, that was enough of a long rant. Again, I'm sorry. We've been kind of digging through this a lot before making this video, and it was a lot of information to cover. But anyway, I'm gonna get underneath the dash, like I said, and get this plugged into our module, get our wiring pulled down so we can plug our bypass cable in. And then when we bring you back, I'll have the XTool plugged up and we'll attempt to get these key fobs programmed. But with that being said, I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So we're just getting our XTool set up here, but I want to show you what we've done. It was easier to get to the secure gateway wiring by dropping down this lower part of the dash. So there's 2 Phillips screws on the bottom that hold it in place, and there's 2 Torx bits once you have this side molding here removed. And if you can see it right, I'll point to it right here. I apologize, it's kind of hard for you to see that. Let me get you some light in there. I'll just touch that with a flashlight. You can see that connector hanging right there. Now, that's the factory harness that would normally plug into the secure gateway, but we've got our Z Automotive extension cable plugged into that, and then finally our bypass cable, and then from our bypass cable to our scan tool. Now, I wanted to cover a little bit more about why we're using this particular scan tool here. Is on the newer vehicles, the 4-digit pin that you get from a dealer is going to be good for 12 hours. However, you'll probably find out with a lot of third-party scan tools such as this one, when you go to program a key, it's going to come up and want a 5-digit pin, not a 4-digit pin. Now, the older Chrysler vehicles, especially the vehicles you've seen on this channel, they all had 4-digit pins that were static. They were fixed to the vehicle. Once you knew the pin, it never changed. Again, those 4-digit pins that I can get from the dealer now for these newer vehicles are only good for 12 hours. Now, my understanding from what I found online is that is obviously a rotating pin, but each vehicle also has a fixed 5-digit pin, kind of like the older static ones are, except they're 5 digits now instead of 4. And how they come up with the 4-digit pin is it's a algorithm they put the 5-digit pin through, from my understanding. Again, could be wrong about this. It's just what I could find online. Now, I was able to pull the pin out of the RFH module using this XTool on this Jeep Compass. I have that pin here, and what we're going to try is I'm going to try to program a key without pulling the pin. So if it's true what they say, that the 5-digit pins are actually static to the vehicle and they don't change, then we should be able to successfully use the pin that I pulled out of this Jeep about a month ago and use that to program another set of fobs. Now, I will warn you, although this tool, nothing against this tool, I'm not speaking ill of it, just a warning, it happened in this case. We were able to use this tool to pull the pin out of the RFH module. However, it did damage the RFH module in the process. Now, you can still run and drive the vehicle. You can still start, stop, unlock, lock all the doors. What it damaged was the TPMS ability of this module. So it still reads the tire sensor IDs, it still reads the pressure real time, but it won't display the information on the dash. When you go to look at the tire pressure values on the dash, you get a service TPMS system. And inside of the RFH module, there's actually a fault code, a general memory fault code. So whatever this scan tool did in order to be able to read that 5-digit pin, it actually damaged the module in the process. So with that being said, it was one of the reasons why we ended up getting this tool here, the actual Mopar tool, for doing a lot of these diagnostics and repairs, because it will help us bring additional content to the channel. Now, I do have an RF hub, and I tried to replace the hub on this Jeep. However, it requires the 4-digit aftermarket NASTIF pin that I cannot get. The 4-digit pins that I can get from my dealer do not work with the aftermarket version of YTech. And you may be asking yourself, why use YTech to do that RF hub replacement? Well, at least in this make model Jeep, unfortunately, you have to use YTech to replace the RF hub on these newer vehicles. No scan tool that I have or other utility that I have access to currently, none of them have an option to do an RF hub replacement on this vehicle. It's in the YTech software, but again, we need that aftermarket NASTIF pin that we cannot get. So it's kind of a long-winded way of saying, if you've got a Jeep Compass or one of these newer Jeeps or one of these newer vehicles that require a 5-digit pin, for your third-party scan tool, because you're trying to program a set of keys and your scan tool has the ability of pulling that pin out of the RFH module. Just, you know, proceed with caution, I guess, is a way of saying it. Anyway, what we're going to do here, I'm going to pause you, I'm going to bring you back, and then we're going to get set up and we're going to see if we can program a fob. So one moment. And welcome back. So I got one of our fobs out of our pouch, and in case you're wondering what this pouch is, it's just one of those RFID blocking, key blocking pouches. I'm just using it to make sure that the vehicle only sees the one fob at a time, one of the new ones at a time that I want to program. So now that we're in to our radio frequency hub, and I still have the ignition off, by the way, we're gonna go, I'm gonna grab my pin here, and we're going to go into special functions. I don't want special functions. What I want, and I want too far in, I keep forgetting, you have to forgive me. Sorry for the hunt and peck on this vehicle. Takes a little bit for me to, I don't use this one often. But what we want to go into are special functions off our main menu. We're going to go into key programming. And yes, we're good. We're going to look for, I think it's under Chrysler and not Jeep, but let's see if they've got a Jeep option. They do have a Jeep option. So we want a Jeep. And we're going to select by model. This is going to be a North American model Jeep. We're looking at a compass, and we're looking at a 21 to 23 compass. And what we have is we don't have a blade key, we got a smart key because we got a fob. We don't use a physical key. Now you'll notice here it says that the secure gateway bypass cable must be installed, which you saw us do earlier on 19 and up. So we're going to say cable that. Now, just to see if we can read the number of program keys, see, you can see that we have 3 in here, because again, I read this pin earlier and I was able to program the key successfully, but I want to program 2 more. So turn the hazard lights on and the ignition off, which, let me go turn the hazard lights on. Hazard lights are on. We're going to say okay to that. Now again, you'll notice it says 5-digit pin, not 4. This is the pin I got out of the vehicle about a month ago. Okay, I'm placing it near the start stop button. Press unlock. Did that. Communicating. Programming success. Nice. So we're going to go ahead and get the other key fob out of our package. I'm sorry for the camera work, because I am happen to hold you to do all this. You can see it's a new fob. You just get this fob out of the package. Go ahead, grab my pin again. We're going to program keys. We have our hazard lights on, the ignition is still off. That's our pin from before. Communicating, and once again, hold it the start stop button. Hit unlock. Communicating. Programming success. Perfect. So now if we read the number of keys, you can see that we have 5, which we do now have 5 programmed to this vehicle. You can see we do have the option of reading the pin code. Let me turn the hazards off. But again, we're not going to do that here, because again, I did that about a month ago with this scan tool and the pin didn't change. So what I could find online about the 5-digit pins being static to the vehicle seems to be the case here. And just to show you, if we go back, and that's key programming. If we go back 1, and let's just go back into auto scan real quick. I wanted to show you that there actually is no option to even do an RF hub replace, unfortunately, on this vehicle either. No, that's going to take a... So let me let that scan and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So just to show you here, if we go... This is done with the scan, but if we go back into our RFH, diagnose, and just to show you, it does show that code is being stored, but that code will become active again once we drive it. But that's that general memory fault that occurred right after we had this scan tool read the pin. But if we go into special functions, you can see I can only program tire IDs, tire sensor IDs. I can't do an RF hub replacement. Anyway, I'm going to back out of here. I'm going to get this scan tool disconnected. Oh, and just to show you, I forgot to show you that in the last clip. You can see we can lock, unlock on that fob. Let me grab the other fob we programmed. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let me get this one. Let me get this scan tool disconnected. We're going to get our OBD Link MX Plus connected. And then we're going to turn the option on to enable a remote start. And then we'll go from there, but I'll bring you right back. One moment. And welcome back. Well, you can see we've got our Bluetooth dongle. And this is that OBD Link MX Plus. You've seen us use this on the channel before. I am recording on my cell phone, so as long as the recording on the cell phone comes out okay, we'll do what we normally do, is we'll keep the audio from the camera and we'll just overlay the video with what we're capturing off the phone, because it'll be a lot easier to see. But we're in my 2017 Plus Jeep Compass. We're in the body computer. We're going to select body computer again, and we're going to see if we can connect to body computer. So you can see we're connected to the body computer at this point. So we're going to click on the little picture of the car with its hood up down here at the bottom. Now, I didn't see a backup option in here to back the config up like I would normally like to do. So if you're going to do this, again, just be real mindful about what you're doing and what you're changing. So I've been through this list a couple of times, and I unfortunately do not see it. But what we want is car configuration change. There we go, right there. And we want to grab this pull down, and what we're going to search for is remote. And we're looking for remote start. There it is. Now select a value that we're going to change it to, which is present. We're going to hit start, and you can see the current state of this is that it's absent. Now the moment that we do this, again, we're going to have to do a proxy alignment, which you can do with Alpha OBD if you have all the correct adapters. If you look at Alpha OBD's website, it does list the adapters that you need, and I think this software will even prompt you as to what adapters it needs as it does this. But however, since we have the diagnostic tools, we'll see if we can do this natively without having to, we can either use the launch or we'll try the Mopar one. So remote start present, we're going to hit next. Procedure complete. So now it has remote start enabled. So if we were to get in here and do anything at all, it would get rather upset with us. What I wanted to do was just connect in one more time to show you. Now, see, there's your warning about your diagnostics, and I believe if we come down here, and I can't remember where it's at, but Alpha OBD does state that you do have to do a proxy alignment when you're doing this. So now that we've got that in there, what I want to do before I turn on the ignition or do any of that, because like I said, I have done this before, the vehicle does get rather upset because that alignment has not been done. I'm going to disconnect all this, disconnect our extension wiring, and plug that Y adapter, or I should say plug the vehicle back into the secure gateway, and then we're going to go back into the launch scan tool and see if we can do the proxy alignment on this Jeep. And if the launch won't do it, then what we'll do is we'll try the Mopar diagnostic pod. So let me get all that set up and I'll bring you back. One moment. Oh, and I'm sorry, one thing that I like to do, and it's just me, is that you can see I always like to back out of the Alpha software just to make sure it disconnects. But bring you right back. And welcome back. We've got our scan tool powered up, plugged in. We've got our secure gateway reattached, and we've unlocked it with our launch scan tool. And as you can see, like I was telling you before, the dashboard's lit up like a Christmas tree. All kinds of messages popped up on the screen going service, ABS, service steering, pretty much every module it's saying that it needs to be serviced. And what it is, it's mad that we made a change to the body computer. So what we want to do is I'm just going to go into system list, and this will be under the body control module. And I believe it's under special functions, and then proxy alignment. We're going to select that. Okay, ignition must be in run position, radio must be on. Okay. Let me just turn that down so we don't get a copyright. We're gonna hit OK. And not configured to mismatch, not configured to mismatch, not configured to mismatch. So it's a little bit upset with us at this point. I'm gonna hit continue. Continue to align the following ECUs. Yes, that's what we want to do. Continue to align ECUs. The procedure must stop bus messaging. The messaging will be enabled back before the procedure is finished. Attention. If the procedure is aborted before it is finished, battery disconnected, reconnected will be required to restore vehicle functionality. All right. First time I'm running this. Ooh, it says it's been completed with errors. Please close the procedure. Shut the ignition off. The ignition, close all doors. Unplug the diagnostic tool from DLC and wait for the bus to go to sleep. After the bus is asleep, wait 2 minutes and then you can reconnect the tool to the vehicle and run the proxy alignment procedure again. Okay. So what we're going to do is do like it says. We're going to turn that off. Sorry, we're going to exit this. And I'm going to close the doors, give it its 2 minutes to go to sleep. And then I'm going to try with the Mopar Diagnostics fob to see if we can do a proxy alignment. Now, worst case scenario, we may have to just undo our remote start change, but we shall see. One moment. And welcome back. Well, we ended up, and I didn't show it to you because I couldn't capture it. We ended up having to use the align proxy option within the actual Logitech software in order to complete it. The Logitech scan tool, as you saw in the previous clip, just wouldn't complete it for one reason or another. So apparently they've still got some work to do there. Whether the XTool would do it, I didn't check. But since we had the factory dongle, I figured let's go ahead and just use the factory dongle. Because, again, the reason why we opted to purchase the dongle, which, again, it's a pretty good investment. It's about the same cost of a scan tool to get one of these. Because you also have to purchase the Logitech subscription, an ECU flash, and a Tech Authority subscription for a lot. You got to get 3 separate subscriptions you have to purchase. And they do have like 3-day options available for 2, but don't worry, we'll do a video later if there's interest in it on exactly what the setup was like for that. But we were able to use this to complete the proxy alignment, which got rid of all the dash errors that you were seeing and basically Again, what it's doing, it took the configuration from the BCM where we enabled the remote start function and pushed it out to the other unit, so that way they're all aware, and they're all aware of each other's configuration and everything matches. Earlier when we tried to do the alignment with the launch, I showed you the dash real quick, and before you do that, when the proxy's out of alignment, the dash will light up like a Christmas tree, and you'll get a fault on the dash for pretty much every module within the vehicle almost. But this was almost the same process as doing the launch. You go to the body control module. I'm sorry, it's in the assisted functions, if I remember correctly, within YTech. The guided functions within YTech. And what it has you do is turn the ignition on, turn the radio on, just like the launch, runs through its process. It has you turn the ignition off, take the VCI device out, you wait 15 minutes, and you can check the status. When I check the status after waiting 15 minutes, all the modules are now back into an alignment. But what I want to do is go ahead and attempt to start the vehicle, because one of the things that will happen is if the proxy is out of alignment on these, you can't even start them. You can't start them. You can pretty much do next to nothing on these vehicles when that happens. And again, we don't know what else is going to happen since we went in here with a third-party tool and configured remote start. But what I want to check first is just make sure that we can still start and run. We did get a momentary message there about servicing the ESC system, but again, that just could be residuals from it having everything reset and not everything being completely run. Now, what we may discover long term is that we may need to turn remote start off, because it may be missing other components within this vehicle in order to fully facilitate that. But the good news is we can do that. Yep, we can go into gear. Perfect. I'll just show you that down here. We'll go back in the drive. We can run drive. We had our backup camera. And like I said before, what would happen, you'd get a dash full of errors, and then the mileage on the bottom would sit there and flash at you. And my understanding is when you see that mileage flash at you in the dash, that's a pretty good telltale sign that the configuration of the vehicle, the modules, are out of alignment with each other. So what I'm going to do now is, before I button all of this stuff back up, I'm going to grab one of the other fobs and see what happens when we double click the remote start button. Could be something, could be nothing at all. It may be a situation just like it is on the Rams on this channel. When you enable those, a lot of times they don't work right away. You actually have to take the vehicle out for a drive cycle and then park and let it set, and normally it'll enable. But let me go grab one of the fobs and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. You'll have to forgive the wind noise. It's getting kind of windy out here as the sun's setting, but I've got one of the fobs we programmed with the remote start, and let's see what we get. Oh, one beep. That is encouraging. Why that is encouraging is because, you remember, it does the same thing it does on the Rams. You get the one beep and then nothing, and it seems to be what you have to do on the Rams, if you remember, is actually drive them around for a drive cycle, park them, let them sit, and usually that takes care of it. But that is encouraging. It actually does register the remote start button on the fobs at this point. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and button everything up here, put the dash back together, and then we'll take this out for a drive cycle, and then we'll park it, we'll let it sit, and then we'll try it again and see if that brings that to life. So one moment. And welcome back. So we took it for a little bit of drive. I know it doesn't look like it because we parked it back in the same spot, but let's see if it's that was enough or it's going to need something else. Oh, that is beautiful. That is 100% beautiful. So now, if we unlock, sorry, let me blah 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 blah. Turn the radio down. So now if we come in and just hit the start stop button, you can see the engine remains running, and now we have control over the vehicle rather than the remote start stop. So awesome. Well, let me turn this thing off and then we'll kind of recap this a bit. And you'll have to forgive, but we're still in the tail ends of winter here, so it's getting dark pretty quick. But as you saw, we were able to successfully program factory remote start into a 2021 Jeep Compass. Now, was it as easy as doing it on the Rams? No, it wasn't. On the Rams, you can pretty much change one setting in Alpha OBD. Apologies, it's going to be dark. I'm sitting in the car, obviously. And on the Rams, you enable remote start. You configure the setting for the hood latch if you haven't, or if it's missing, you add the hood latch. You configure the setting for the hood latch so the car knows about it, or the truck knows about it. Then you enable the setting. And much like this one, take them for a little bit of a drive and then let them set. And that seems to be it. But on this one, you saw, just due to the additional complexities of the vehicle, we needed to get in there and do a couple things. One, I know you can barely see that, I apologize, is we had to program, actually, I'll tell you what. Let me cut this and I'll bring in the garage where you can see some stuff, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So this is a bit better. Yes, mind my messy garage desk. But as you saw, we were able, just to recap, we were able to successfully enable factory remote start in that 2021 Jeep Compass. And as I was saying, obviously, is it as easy as it is doing it in the Rams? No, not with that particular Jeep. Again, the complexity part of that one is needing to do that proxy alignment. Now, Alpha OBD, from my understanding, can do it, but like with anything else, your results may vary. Now, we can try it, and matter of fact, we will try it. We have other things scheduled for this Jeep as far as the lineup. Factory remote start was one, as I commented on earlier. We're also looking at enabling and changing out the components to do automatic headlights. We also want to add the components and change the configuration so that, like on most upper trim level Jeeps, where you can just grab the door handle and have the Jeep unlock itself. I can't tell you, because I've gotten used to it on the other vehicles, and yes, I know it's a first world problem, but I've gotten used to it on other vehicles, and I can't tell you how many times I won't be thinking about it, and I'll go to get in his Jeep and grab the door handle, and surprise, surprise, it doesn't unlock itself. But so we got at least 2 more upgrades coming down the pipe for, again, that 2021 Jeep Compass. So again, the complex factor with that one is that it's needing that proxy alignment after you make changes. Now, I wanted to try it with the factory dongle, as you saw, and the software, and it did work. And don't worry, I will catch the steps of what that looks like in a future video, because I wanted to make sure it would work. Because if for whatever reason you saw that the launch, even though it said it could do it, it failed, and in case we go to try this with Alpha OBD, if it doesn't succeed, then I wanted to make sure that we had an avenue in which we knew it would succeed. In this case, is that factory scan tool. Because what happens, just to reiterate, what happens on those is if they need proxy alignment and you change that setting like we did, remember earlier in the video, the dash lights up like a Christmas tree. You get an error in every single module. The vehicle will not even start, at least in this Compass's case, will not even start and run until that alignment is complete. And once again, what you're doing with that alignment is that you're letting all the other ECUs in that vehicle know that the configuration of that BCM has changed, and here's the update. So you're basically getting everybody on the same page, and then it's happy, and then it'll start, and then it'll run again, and all the air lights in the dash will go out. So, not as easy as it does on the Rams. Can be done, but may run into you may run into needing some custom software to pull it off. In this case, once again, we just went ahead and tried the factory, the Mopar Diagnostic pod, as they call it, as well as using the YTech 2 software to go ahead and do that alignment. So, but once again, what happens with that is that we usually, when I need the YTech software, I buy the 3-day subscriptions, and there's 3 parts to that. There's a year-long one that gets tied to the VIN for ECU flashing. I already had that one, but I did have to buy the Tech Authority for 3 days, and then I had to buy the YTech software itself access for 3 days. So I had to buy those 2 pieces of software to even get in and do that alignment. But I will put in the description below links to the key fobs I used, because as you saw in the video, we do have 5 fobs. And how I originally got the pin number testing this out, I used a fob at first that I didn't like the quality of it, so I went and got 2 other ones, which is the 2 you saw me that we configured for the vehicle tonight. So I'll put a link to those. They're a bit higher quality. I like the build on them. They got a very nice weighted feel to them, so I'll put them in the description below. So, one last thing I wanted to reiterate, and I know there's been a lot of talking in this video, but we've had a lot of stuff to cover. There's a lot of caveats you just need to be mindful of before you attempt this, and that's going to be getting that 5-digit PIN number that the third-party scan tools are needing, because you saw the XTool needed 5-digit PIN, and if you're in Alpha OBD and you try to disable or enable existing fobs, you also need a 5-digit PIN, not a 4. Again, the 4-digit pins that I could get from my dealer only work per YTech support. They only work with the dealer version of YTech, not the aftermarket. But now, even though the XTool was able to successfully read the 5-digit pin out of this vehicle, it did damage the RF hub doing so. Now, it didn't damage it enough where it wasn't usable. As you saw, we can still lock, unlock, start, run, drive the vehicle. It just damaged its ability to display the TPMS values on the dashboard. So again, take that with a grain of salt. Be mindful that, and again, I'm not picking on XTool, whatever third-party tool you use, if it has the ability to kind of pull that pin out of the RFH module, just be mindful that it may cause some problems down the road. May or may not. In this case, it did, but it's minor. But unfortunately, because I don't have access to that 4-digit aftermarket pin that I need, I have the module, but I can't change it out myself because, again, only the YTech software has that RF hub replace procedure that I've seen, and I need that aftermarket 4-digit pin from Nastiff, which I can't get because I'm not registered as a locksmith. So unfortunately, it's going to have to go to a dealer, and I'm going to have to pay them the money and the programming time to swap that hub out just to get that TPMS functionality back on the dash. But again, I'm sorry. I know it's been a long one. Once again, there's been a lot of stuff to cover. And I know when it comes to my videos that I do have individuals that leave comments that I talk too much. But in this case, I wanted to go over all the details. I wanted to make you aware that there are some caveats to doing this one. It's not as straightforward as it has been with other and older Chrysler vehicles. Again, this is a 2021 Compass. From what I can gather, read in the forums, it aligns more with a Fiat as far as its software and architecture and such. So just, again, keep that in mind. But that being said, again, I'll put links in the description below to those fobs I used. And like I said, we've got more work coming on this Jeep. We'll be enabling the automatic headlights, and we'll be also enabling the proximity. So you can just grab the door handle as long as you got the fob in your position, and it'll unlock itself. So we got a lot more coming. With that being said, I do apologize for the delay in putting out videos. We hope to kind of kick back up and resume a normal pace. YouTube's not my primary job. The primary job's been busy, which is where all my time's been going. But I am on the lookout for an additional project vehicle. So keep your eyes out on that video once we're able to nail something down. But that being said, I will let you go. Thank you much. Bye.